My throat feels all scratchy.
Jesse, hey!
Emily.
What are you doing down here, Emily?
What do you mean? You called me down, remember?
I'm pretty sure I didn't.
No, that's right. You didn't. But then, I remember you needing me to come here. I mean, you even told me how to get in. Let's just chalk it up to synchronicity so we can get to work.
She takes everything in stride.
The board called me down here to deal with the situation. The astral plane is
colliding with our world, I know. Isn't it fascinating? I never even considered that the astral plane could be a physical volume expanding beyond its dimensional container. The bleed is localized to this area, but its growth rate seems steady. Given time, it will consume the entire Bureau, and possibly beyond.
That's what I'm here to stop. The board told me to fix the nail over there by dismantling 4 locks in the astral plane. Funny, I think it's put itself back together a bit.
So that could be due to the law of inverse exchange. For every associated component you remove, this nail reconstructs. Or possibly some variation of anti-sympathy. Don't worry, I'll look into it. Did you notice all the Bureau infrastructure? It looks like there was a research team stationed down here at some point. Do you think Darling knew about this?
I'd put money on it. That reminds me, have you seen Marshall? She contacted me over the hotline, but then I saw her walking around.
I haven't seen her. The hotline only connects to extraplanar entities. Or dead people. But Marshall's proved time and time again that she's a survivor.
That's exactly what I thought.
Anyway, I've been looking into the minerals growing down here. Have you noticed how they insist on maintaining a certain form? Maybe some sort of a state memory, or they consciously prefer a certain shape?
I think we're on a clock here, Emily. I need to stop the astral bleeding before it brings the oldest house down. See what you can find out from the nail in the meantime. And send out some rangers to look for Marshall. She may be in trouble.
Will do, Jesse. If you see anything interesting, remember to take detailed notes. All the tests I run on the nail keep coming back as nonsense, and a couple of my instruments have already broken.
Maybe we should take that as a sign to pack it in?
I didn't take you for a quitter, Dr. Saba. There's a reason I packed a black rock-plated microscope. Jesse, you're back! So did you find anything noteworthy? The original Bureau expedition down here left so much interesting stuff behind.
Like their ID cards. I picked up a weird one. It's pretty old.
Oh wow, look at that. Yeah, I found a few ID cards myself. Or, more accurately, the Rangers found them for me.
Are you starting a collection?
I'm going for the whole set. I kid, of course. But I suppose they are sort of like baseball cards, except for Bureau stuff from the 60s. Hey, the one you found is different than mine. It looks like it's a higher clearance level.
A rare one, then. Want to keep it, Emily?
Yeah, I absolutely do. But I think you should hang on to it for now. High clearance access might come in handy.
Sounds like you have something in mind.
Guilty. See, I've been going through Dr. Ash's notes, or the ones I can find, anyway. Like Darling, he seemed to enjoy hiding his most relevant research. From what I gather, there is another floor beneath the warehouse with a special lab that requires 5 high-level staff members just to access. Here, take this. It's an old skeleton key. Something else the Rangers found. I give them $5 for every useful trinket they bring me.
I'm gonna assume this key is my ticket to that lower floor. And that super secret lab you mentioned.
Bingo bango, as Dr. Darling used to say. Well, keep your eyes peeled for more ID cards around the warehouse. If Ash's notes are reliable, and I'm sure they are, then 5 is the magic number.
This ID card was for an excavation engineer. Why did so many people abandon their cards down here? from the layer of dust on this place, nobody's swept here in years. Not even Ati. No way he'd stand for this. There's an elevator, which I'm sure is super safe, in a space in each terminal for an ID card. But which card goes where? It worked. Now I just have to get on a rickety elevator that goes who knows how far down. Still, this lab's way tinier than any of Darling's. Why would they need such a heavy door down here? This looks like the nail, only mini. A document. Is this in some kind of code? I can't read a word of it. I should take this back to Emily and tell her. Ash's secret lab.
I found Ash's secret lab.
Excellent. Please tell me everything. Spare no details.
Well, there was another cave. The walls were covered in paintings of eyeballs. The research seemed dedicated to studying a kinda smaller version of the nail. It looked like the same material as the one up here, but just a different shape.
Well, are you sure you didn't see any functioning prototypes? Or at least some schematics? I mean, Dr. Ash was a very accomplished engineer.
None. Sorry. I did find this handwritten note.
Wow. Ash had terrible handwriting. Never meet your heroes, right? That looks like a transcribed conversation between Ash and someone named F. Ooh. Oh, this is juicy. This'll take me days to parse out. Maybe weeks.
Have you ever thought about taking a vacation, Emily?
Are you kidding? This is my vacation, Jesse. The Rangers have tapped into an old radio network they found around the Foundation. So if you need backup, just call them at one of the stations.
How did the Hiss get into the Foundation?
Same way we did, I imagine. But you need to remember that the Hiss are the embodiment of persistence. Their nature seems to be one of force, to find every possible vulnerability and exploit it. Their only goal is consumption.
I'm sure there's plenty of goodies for them down here. The nail, for instance.
If the Hiss could corrupt the nail, I'm sure they would have by now. It must not interest them in its broken state. They could be distracted by the numerous unknown paranatural materials I'm sure are lying around. These are the roots of the oldest house. The Hiss will find plenty of ways to make trouble.
They're pretty good at that. So you've never heard of the Foundation, huh?
I've never even seen the name referenced. I mean, clearly it's highly classified, but for what reason? The problem with these kinds of closed-off hidden areas is that they were likely sealed for good reason. But now no one is left to tell us what that reason was.
Any guesses why the Bureau would hide something like this?
I only know what I've observed. This place is spatially rigid, which means it doesn't shift like the rest of the oldest house. Before you ask why that is, I have to admit that I'm clueless. There's some signal interfering with my equipment, making it hard to get a clear reading. It's being emitted from the floor. Maybe I should have brought a jackhammer.
The astral plane is already taking chunks out of this place, Emily. Let's not add to it. So let me get this straight. The astral plane is bleeding into the Foundation.
Correct.
And that's happening because the nail is damaged.
I'd say it's a bit more than damaged, but yes, that is my understanding.
So what's the connection between the nail and the astral plane?
It's a good question. See, I always pictured objects of power as strings between our plane and the astral. If the nail has a similar relationship, then maybe it's more accurate to think of it like plumbing. Now that the nail is busted, sewage is gushing everywhere.
Not the prettiest metaphor.
I should get back out there.
Agreed. The astral bleed won't stop itself. Hi, Jesse.
So, there was a moment after Hedron died that I couldn't feel my powers. The hiss got into my head.
So that explains the... Before we knew what was happening, I saw terrible... So if Hedron's death knocked out the HRAs, that means there must be a new... Hedron is dead, assuming that word even applies. But whatever it awakened in you, the power, or at least that's what my...
I don't think we're ever gonna understand. I'm okay with that. I'm just glad you're...
Thanks, Emily. Well, I've got a bureau to run. See you soon.
Yes, ma'am, Director Faden.
Please, Emily. Not even as a joke.